Hey, how's it going, guys? I normally do a full breakdown for every episode of The Bad Batch and, all the other Disney Plus shows for Star Wars. But tonight's episode kind of left me in a bit of a funk. Like, I don't really know what to break down all that much. There were a few things to speculate on, so I'm not really going to make a whole video and, there were 20 different things that you missed in this episode because there really weren't all that much. To be honest, it was a pretty lame episode, and it was my least favorite episode, in my opinion. You may have enjoyed it, but therein lies the beauty of having different opinions. So while this episode didn't do all that much, I feel like it did incorporate one thing that I do want to talk about. And while I know you'll get lots of different videos on the YouTubes and articles on the nets, covering, like 20 Easter eggs or whatever from this episode, there really weren't all that many. There were a few, but they're not really all that worth talking about or making a video. So this video is going to talk about something that I did find rather interesting, which was the Pike Syndicate returning or coming back from the Clone Wars. Now, the Pike Syndicate were essentially a cartel kind of thing. They transported this substance called spice, and spice was they made a variant of it, which was a illegal substance. It was an illicit substance. And they would work Wookiees to the bone, to death, pretty much. They would work slave Wookiees to create this illicit substance of spice, and they would transport it throughout the galaxy. And a lot of the stations that they would transport this to, or make this on, Ryloth and Naboo being the two main major ones, of course, Kessel. So the Pike Syndicate teamed up in the Clone Wars with Darth Maul. And now I have a whole video on the Pike Syndicate, which a lot of the information is grabbed from Wikipedia. And I fact-checked the information there even with a lot of Star Wars books and stuff that I have regarding the Pike Syndicate. Now, the incorporation of these guys in this episode could mean that Darth Maul is somewhere looming in the background. As we know, Darth Maul created the Shadow Collective, which the collective incorporated a ton of these different people. The Pikes, a lot of the Mandalorians, it was pre-Vizsla back then, which he's gone now. And then once that ended, then he created Crimson Dawn. So that was his resurgence sort of thing. But right now we're at the point where the Pikes were told by Maul to lay low after Order 66 and stay in hiding, as we saw in the Clone Wars. So now at this point, I feel like they're coming about again. They're doing their thing. They're doing their business deals. And Maul might be in the background somewhere, maybe pulling the strings behind all of this. What are they selling this spice for at this moment? What are they trying to do? Maul was like this third party. He wasn't the Republic. He wasn't the Separatists. He was like this third entity that was sort of just in the middle and trying to create his own name in the galaxy and, to rival his former master, Darth Sidious. So I think that their involvement in this episode could potentially mean that maybe Maul is behind there somewhere and he's going to be looming in the background and he's going to come in at some point, which would be pretty sweet. Because we don't really know where he went after Clone Wars Season 7 at the very end. He just blasted off into the galaxy, and a lot of people came up with theories thinking that he went to save Grogu and make him his own apprentice, blah, 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 which is a cool theory, but I'd love to dive into that someday. But I think that he's just building his empire at this point. He knows that Sidious and Vader are master and apprentice, and they're taking over the galaxy of the Galactic Empire, which has now been formed from the Republic, or from the Fallen Republic. And he's got to create his own name. He's got to really build his structure and have an army of his own if he wants to take over the galaxy for himself. So right now he's just kind of handling the underworld, I suppose. And I think Book of Boba may go over some remnants of Crimson Dawn, which would be pretty interesting. So that being said, I feel like this episode in general was, and I hate the word filler because I really feel like every single show or every single episode of any Star Wars show really adds towards the character development of so many different beings, like, the relationship between Omega and Hunter and so much more. We see, Omega is a smart, intelligent being. She's trial and error. She fails at a lot of things and she gets better and better over time. Even Sid's character arc, and I guess we could see that maybe in this episode, but really, who cares about Sid? She's not really that important. I really wanted it to continue the story arc from at least the last episode. It was like Crosshair gets the green light. You can now go eliminate your brothers. Finally, you know, the Empire's like, yeah, get them out of our hair. They're too freaking annoying, and just handle it yourself. So at this point, we're left with, okay, where is he going? Are they now going to show up somewhere and cross-check them and take them out, or something like that? Is something dire going to happen where Crosshair maybe gets killed or something? He gets redeemed and then, you know, killed or murdered? But no, we go into this, like, very boring mission that really didn't need to happen. We didn't even need to see it, at least to my knowledge, and we may come to learn the truth of all of this. I will certainly learn the truth of all of this later on, maybe in episode 14, 15, 16, which I'm looking forward to. But as of right now, it was a pretty boring episode for me, and my least favorite episode by far. That being said, the incorporation of the Pike Syndicate is rather intriguing. I think it's pretty cool, and I think it could lead to Maul. I think it could lead to something quite dark and sinister and different, and having a bigger power there. And I don't think that we're just going to end, you know, this whole story with Crosshair being the big bad. I think that the big bad is going to be either Vader, or it's going to be Maul, or it's going to be something that I'm not even thinking of, like, you know, I don't know. But I wanted to see more of the Phase 3 clone troopers. I wanted to see more of the transfer of the Republic into the Galactic Empire that we've been seeing in, you know, the prior episodes, which was really, really interesting to see how the galaxy is dealing and learning with this new sort of law that the Empire is imposing on them. You know, you got to have a number, you got to have a transponder in all of your ships, you got to have all of these different rules. You're basically tagged, and they can track you every single place you go. I mean, that's quite different than what it was like in the Republic, even when there was a war between the Republic and the Separatists. So I feel like now, you know, people are going to start to come around. They're going to be like, yeah, this is a little bit, this is quite oppressive and invasive, you know, George Orwell style, 1984. So I'm pretty stoked on where the episode could go. But as for this episode, I wasn't very stoked at all. I thought it was quite boring. Now, a few things I do want to mention. Some of you said that you saw Fives' helmet at 1 minute and 51 seconds or something like that in Sid's office. I don't think it's Fives' helmet, but I'm going to put a picture of it right here, and you guys can tell me for yourselves. Now, as for the ending where Wrecker was, a lot of you in the chat and during the watch party were saying that Wrecker was breathing pretty heavily, which you thought was weird. He was lugging a lot of the spice, so, you know, obviously he gets tired. He's a human, so, you know, while he may be very strong and have, you know, extended stamina and strength and all that, and healing and resilience, he's still a human. He gets tired, you know. He has lungs, he has a heart. It pumps too hard, it needs more oxygen, he tires out. And Sid wasn't breathing hard because she wasn't really doing anything. She was just handling the rope business. So that's the answer to that. If there's anything else I'm missing, I'll of course make a video on it, but really there isn't really too much to talk about. So my main interest in this episode is the fact that Maul could show up at some point with the incorporation of the Pike Syndicate, which is pretty cool. If you haven't seen my video, go check it out. There's a lot of incorporation from Wikipedia in that video, so it's pretty entertaining. I've turned it into video form and given you my thoughts on it, and of course changed it up so that it's not blatantly a copy. But hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Unfortunately, I'm sorry this wasn't a proper breakdown like they usually are, but you'll be able to see that next week. So, and heck, maybe even like these kind of videos more. Who knows? But I always like to do the typical picture, video, music, kind of how Star Wars Theory started. Stay tuned for more fan fiction. Stay tuned for more videos, lore videos. I'm going to be uploading twice a day now on average. So stay tuned for the increased content, and I will see you all in the next episode of Star Wars Theory. Until then, remember, the Force will be with you always.